And it doesn't look like anybody is, you're the other
That's
participant.
right, that's right.
Yeah.
I've not
Just gonna
yet
ask somebody
myself
to
changed
check the
my
time.
profile.
Yeah, I'm working on it. For sure.
And you're
Yes.
guaranteed that everybody
It's
on
sitting
that
on
list,
swear on line.
I got somebody that says it's not true.
Really?
Yeah.
Got a name,
It's like,
got a name, a whole day said, doesn't
I
live.
haven't gotten it yet, but I've been told it.
So how are you?
Nope, everybody on that list.
Oh, there you go,
What's
saving
working?
it.
I got the year before as well.
Okay.
You're collecting them.
Yeah.
We'll start
I
it.
did
They're good presentations.
Okay.
I've got the several years of the actual formal.
Okay. That's
document as well.
Yeah, because I'm gonna have to wait until next week for this.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we're gonna begin this select board meeting for March 18th. I'd like to start with the warrants. I'd like to make a motion that we approve payroll number 83 for $2,967.45. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to move to accept accounts payable number 84 for $5,129.99. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
I'd like to move to accept payroll number 85 for $1,885.96. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And lastly, I'd like to move to accept accounts payable number 86 for $86,765.77. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
So you're getting paid.
Yeah, as usual, the reason I always state if there's something that's a little bit high, that's because we have our monthly RSU bill. We won't go any further about that, okay? You're gonna have time to talk. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes for March 4th, 2024 Select Board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
All right, and lastly, before we get to our big event for the evening, I'd also like to make a motion that we approve the special town meeting minutes of February 24th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and let me pull those out and sign those, and then we'll go on to our next agenda item. Where did I put those things?
I think Jeff had a copy and I have a copy. I'm not 100% sure you actually need to sign them.
Here's
but-
the 3-4 meeting.
Yep.
And-
Yep.
Okay, so this one we need to sign.
Did we accept it?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We went up. Yes,
Yeah, you voted. I
yeah,
wrote it
you
down.
voted.
Chris, I was looking at something else.
I thought that was odd, but.
Oh,
It's probably, I probably wasn't. paying
I'm
attention.
like back to you guys.
Maybe we had 2 out of 3 voted yes. Did you abstain or what?
No, I think I was trying to figure out how to check on my muting.
Okay. Now I think we have each other's, these all goes back in the purple folder. Next on our agenda, we have an RSU 12 presentation, so all yours.
All
And
right.
please introduce yourself, and also everybody else is here talking to the owl.
The owl, okay.
Yes,
All right, my name is Howard Tuttle. I'm superintendent for RSU 12, and thank you for having us here as part of your agenda. And we have other members of the school board as well that can introduce themselves.
Richard DeVries from Westport.
Mary Coventry, Westport.
Russell Gates, Somerville.
Shell Grant, business manager.
All right, and they're also all on the finance committee. And so I'm presenting on behalf of the finance committee. We're going around touring to all the towns and talking about the budget. And we've done this before. It'll look pretty similar, and please interrupt and ask questions. It's meant to be a conversation. So you got your cover page there and the vision statement. And does everyone get one of these?
That's, last year. Is there another one?
we have a
Yeah.
bunch here,
Right
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I'd love one. Thank you.
And we also have this letter
Yes.
as well.
That's, you got one?
Got it.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, so we're just gonna go through this page by page, and some things I'll slow down on. And so the first item is on page 2, and that is the district budget meeting. On May 22nd, Chelsea Elementary School. And we usually get a fair amount of folks from Westport Island, which is great, and hopefully that can happen again. And that is when the school board presents the final budget to citizens at the budget meeting. It has to pass the budget meeting. And there's there's a bunch of warrant articles, but they're voting on 11 cost centers that will go down through here. And you have to leave that meeting with a budget. Normally, it goes through without a problem.
Is it just the majority of the people that are there, or do you have a certain quota that you need to meet for votes?
Good question. I believe it's just the majority of people are there. So if we only have 5 people,
Okay.
they get to make big decisions.
That's why we try to be there.
Yeah. And then it goes, so once the budget's kind of finalized by that group, then it goes to referendum in
Right.
June. And the referendum is on June 11th. That's page 3. Page 4 is our tour schedule. So you're second to hear this presentation. We were at Windsor last week. And so if you want to hear it again, it's where it's going to be in all these other towns. Page 5 are our long-range goals from our long-range plan. Page 6 are some priorities that are, most of these are not new. They've been priorities in other budgets as well, but just trying to maintain what we have. There's nothing new in this budget, no new programs. We're just trying to, you'll learn, we're just trying to deal with all of the very expensive legislation that's coming out of Augusta. Priorities, health and wellness services in our buildings. We have nursing staff. We have a director of nutrition, really trying to get local whole foods served to the kids. We have social work services. We were actually awarded a big statewide social work service grant that's paying for one of our social workers as well as other activities and things for students and staff.
And it seems to be something that's getting more and more important within the schools. And it's like DHS has just sloughed off some of their duties onto the school boards and onto the schools, in my opinion.
But the schools are the front line after home, so,
True.
you know.
Yeah, we do, I would say that's true. Many students are stressed and anxious and things
Right.
for a variety of reasons. So we have a bunch of different types of programming in place. The big one is what we call PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, which is a framework that we use throughout the district. And we're also using restorative practices. They kind of go hand in hand. And we have school safety planning. We give the students a survey every year to see how they feel about things. And it's generally positive. And
One of the things that the board does with regard to that positive behavior thing, we look at issues. And we've got a committee that reviews those issues on a regular basis and make sure that there's a resolution to the issues that are happening.
That's good.
And then on page 7, there is a class size policy to help things be fair in our schools. And so that's in this budget, basically, following that policy. We have training for our staff, focusing on math and literacy. We have a lot of new teachers coming in. We're gonna see that for the next couple of years, a lot of retirements.
Mm.
And then Also, what's in here is MLTI has changed the way they fund things. We basically get less money. I think I warned you of that coming down the pipe. So that's happened. So in this budget is money to maintain our Wi-Fi networks and things like that. And we did switch, to all Chromebooks for the kids, which are, they work great and they're way cheaper than the MacBooks we were using.
Do the kids all have access then to an internet connection?
No, you mean at home?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd say probably, geez, a third of our students don't have internet.
Can they use the Chromebooks without that connection?
You can, so yes and no, so they can, you can set it up so that certain files or entire folders are editable offline. So certain things they can do at home.
Okay, so if they prepare, they can download at school and take things home with them.
But for instance, the town of Somerville, I mean, they're about to get internet, which is great, but most of the town did not have internet. You had to buy the satellite kind that's super slow, and people can't afford that, so. But yes, no, it's definitely a challenge for some students. Page 8 is the capital improvement plan, so that's in this budget. And that's one of the first things that we start paring down, but there's 100,000 in here to maintain our buildings and not get behind. We have pre-K programming for every town. Westport Island students can go to Edge Committee for a pre-K program. So that's all in here. The school choice, of course, is a big part of RSU 12. It's a unique opportunity. So that's in here. The maximum allowable tuition went up again. That was the headline last year. It went up 6%. It went up 5.9%. So we've got a problem here. It's hard. And so we budgeted another 6% for next year because we just don't know what's going to happen. We never find out till December. So you'll see that that's a big chunk of the increase. Still not sure what is going to happen with religious schools around Maine. If they want to, they have to become approved by the state of Maine because there's that Supreme Court decision that said you can't not provide tuition, but we didn't, except for Chevron. I don't recall any other religious schools getting approval by the DOE. There's certain things that you have to do and laws you have to follow. And for instance, Temple was not interested, and so we don't pay tuition to Temple yet. So,
So this is paying tuition just like you're any other school?
Yep.
But they have to first be certified as a school?
Yes, an approved school, yeah. So the DOE has a website with all the approved schools, and there's things that you need to do, you know, safety things and, you know, gotta heat the building, like basic things that have to happen, but also other types of, you know, you've gotta follow certain laws and things like that around hiring and discrimination and all those things, so.
It's like an accreditation process.
Yeah, and so just not sure if these schools did get approved by the DOE, you know, they would have access to public tuition. And so not knowing what to anticipate, we just budgeted for 2 students who we may have to pay for it. That's in here. And then one of the things that's helping us out a little bit is the high school student count district-wide actually went down a little bit. So for a variety of reasons, so that helps with the budget. And then let's see, also in terms of trying to hire new employees, that's sort of an ongoing effort. It's not necessarily all in this budget, but we did establish a daycare that you don't pay for, taxpayers don't pay for, but it's on campus and it's run by somebody else. And if a teacher wanted to or needed daycare, it's convenient. And so that's something we've done to try to attract young teachers. We've had a bus driver shortage around the state, and It's affected Westport, well, it's affected all the towns, but it's affected Westport Island to some degree. I don't know if you've gotten the complaint calls. So we set up a bus driver course through Adult Ed. That's operating right now. We've got 6 people getting trained to be bus drivers. They'd like to drive for RSU 12. So we'll keep running that and hopefully solve this problem, but we don't have any, at this point, any sub drivers. So if Pam needs a sick day or something, we're having a hard time providing busing. So hope to fix that for next year. Page 9, you've seen before, if you've seen this, so we try to list and keep track of all the various efficiencies that sort of disappear from the budget, but they're still really there because they are saving us money every year. And we have a collaboration with MSAD 40 around Adult Ed. That's saved a lot of money. We have a service center with Wiscasset RSU 1, and that's also saving money on some high school special ed costs. We have our pre-Ks, federal money pays for half of it through Head Start. And we collaborate with Wiscasset on transportation to some degree, just so, they might pick up our kids or we might pick up their kids depending on the runs and etc. Keeps us from having to put another bus on the road. We have programming at Chelsea Elementary School, specialized programming, which means we don't have to send students out to special purpose private schools that are very expensive. And from time to time, you have had Westport Island students go to those special programs at Chelsea. We bus them there. And it saves money and they get a fantastic education. We did an energy performance contract a number of years ago. It's still saving about $150,000 a year. And then we collaborate with other districts to train our staff. And then we have an electric bus, or 2 electric buses that are not yet on the road. I think I talked about them last year. They're not here yet. We're mostly hooked up and ready to go. When they are on the road, they're supposed to save us about $10,000 a bus.
What do they do?
Right now, so they're delayed, so which is fine. Yeah, we went with a company. It's Thomas. I can't remember that. It's Thomas built buses. You might have heard in the news, some districts went with a company out of Canada and they were having issues. Not issues with the actual engine or there are other issues like the windshield leaked and things like that, so.
The company we work with, has people right around here that can solve those sort of issue problems, but the Canadian company just had 3 representatives in all of the state of Maine. So, they would have to go find somebody to make repairs. So I think we're better off in that regard.
Yep. All right, on page 10 are just some improvements over the last couple of years. And I shared this last year as well. So we have after school programming. We're gonna need to reapply for that. It's coming to an end, but we were awarded the 21st Century Community Learning Center grant that's been in place over the last 4 years. We set up a daycare in Palermo. Again, taxpayers aren't paying for that. It's just we partnered with Boys and Girls Club and they handle everything. We're just providing the space because there was a lot of daycares closing in Palermo. Parents didn't know what they were going to do. We were awarded a school nutrition van through a grant, and that's been very busy this year.
What does the school nutrition van do?
It helps us to sort of consolidate our services between schools in terms of, some food gets made in one kitchen and then we shuttle it to another kitchen. We've also been using it. We were in the news for taking advantage of the free fish. I don't know if there's free fish. The program was started during COVID when the fishermen were worried about not being able to sell their fish. So there's some anonymous donor who's still buying the fish for school districts. And so, yeah, it's like the kids are eating this fish right off the boat
Wow,
and
that's
are,
awesome.
good and healthy.
and, yeah, it's the best haddock sandwich I've ever had. So the van has been doing, going to get the fish, and it's very busy.
One of the things we did was that we hired this chef to be our nutrition advisor head. And, he got this grant for this van, and he just doing just super things to get all of our kids being fed with wholesome, local grown food.
That's nice.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the other thing the van does is if you want, farmers may have extras or whatever. And we're on a list for who, it's kind of random, like 300 pounds of carrots, right? What are you gonna do with 300 pounds, But lots of times the farmers can't get it to us, so we might go get it with the van. And,
That's great.
and I mentioned the other daycare for new staff and the bus driver course, so.
One of the things that we've done is that ventilation upgrades and ionization filters using pandemic funds. So our classrooms are much more healthier than they have been in the past.
On page 11, it just shows the trend of the student count district-wide. And so, and it's it's a whole variety of reasons, but it did seem to start going down after COVID and really hasn't bounced back up. And people might say, oh, it's because everybody's homeschooling it. That's really not necessarily what's doing it. People are moving out. Different kinds of families are moving in without kids. We have a fair amount of folks now going to a charter school that's right next to RSU 12. So that's contributing to it. Meanwhile, on page 12, the Westport count has stayed fairly steady. So you have about 60 students. And right, the half a student is it's a 2-year average. So these numbers come from the this is how the state calculates how much subsidy we'll get. So they use the student.
2-year.
It's a 2-year average, yeah.
So it looks like it's dropped a lot because of how you're showing it, but basically it's the highest been 63 and 59. It's like 4, or except for 2018, but it,
Yeah, you haven't really lost students. You're about around 60, and if anything, you've grown. You used to be at
yeah, we got
52.
52.
Yeah. All right, and then page 13. So the big story of this budget is same thing that happened last year, but even a greater extent. Our total RSU 12 property valuation is up about 11%, which statewide average is about 5%. So for whatever reason, and it may be home values, but it also might be, in Windsor, Chelsea area, there's a lot of CMP lines in there going in and hubs and things, and those are all taxed by the town, so their valuation goes up. So our, let's see, it's about 130, wait, am I doing that right? 132 million. Which is about 11%. And this is a 3-year rolling average. And again, I get this from the sheet the state publishes to determine our subsidy. So if you're worth more, they give you less, just generally speaking, especially if you're not in line with the state of Maine. So if the state of Maine is up 5% and we're up 10 or 11%, you can expect state's gonna kind of give you less per student, which is what we are seeing this year.
One of the things we're gonna be going through is reevaluation.
Now, that story around subsidy does not affect Westport Island really all that much because you never got much to begin with, so.
I guess you're positive.
Never had.
Anyway, so Westport valuation is also, took a little bit of a jump as well compared to other years. And again, this is a 3-year rolling average, so. You know, I don't know if it's trending up again
It will
next
be up again,
year.
yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that brings us to page 15, and if you can remember anything from this presentation, remember page 15. So we try to explain RSU 12's budget is sort of unique in that so much of it is tuition costs that we just pay the bill, right? And so we tried to give a picture to you all as to how much this school board can actually control and make decisions about, and then all the other stuff that's going on. So number one is the controllable costs, and basically we're just looking at the increase. So the increase this year for the controllable costs is $232,000. And if you look at that from year to year, it's about 1.5% that in controllable costs compared to prior years' controllable costs. But things that school board can control, you know, certainly how much staffing do we have, you know, student teacher ratios, things like that. We try to be efficient. How many administrators do we have, those kinds of things. What do we pay them? We need to be competitive, but you know, we're not trying to be a Cadillac either. Salary and benefits, all those decisions are made through negotiations, board votes, etc. And then of course, we have some control over energy and transportation costs, and then we can make choices about capital improvement needs. So those are fairly controllable. And when we start having to make cuts this time of year, that's the only, number one is the only place where we can, you know, make cuts. The rest of the budget, there's really very little we can do. So the uncontrollable costs, the first one is tuition, which is really mostly high school tuition. So there is something called the maximum allowable tuition rate, which is the average across the state of Maine. And no high school can charge more than that. But if your high school is educating students at a lower per student rate, you can only charge that. And the state will tell you what you can charge. And we have 600 students out there, we're paying tuition, we're the only district in the Sheepscott River Valley doing that. I mean, Damariscotta pays tuition as well, that whole area. But so anyway, it's a lot of money. So the maximum allowable tuition rate went up 5.9%, which is what I said before. But we have less students, so it ends up being a 5.1% increase. And again, we're just kind of estimating because we don't know what's going to happen next December, but I think it's the best guess. So that's a $341,000 increase in terms of dollars and cents. The other uncontrollable, which took us by surprise, actually, I didn't expect this when we sat down with special ed. So we've had some students move in, and then we are anticipating one or two more moving in this summer. We've been warned that we need to send to a special purpose school. We can't educate them. They're either K-8 and we just don't have the programs for them, or one or two of them are high schoolers. And so when they go to a special purpose school, you know, it can be $60,000, $70,000 per student. And we normally are able to handle it, right? Some years we haven't had any of those students. Some years we might have one or two. But we're looking at 5 additional students. And so that is that's the estimated price tag for those students. And again, there's, we've talked about this a lot. How can we not pay these bills? But at this point, we're gonna have to. So that is an uncontrollable that's going to impact this budget.
One of the things that has always frustrated me from the finance committee point of view is the tuition costs are based on statewide. And the tuition cost in Portland compared to the tuition costs way up down east is so different. There should be some sort of graduation in those tuition costs across the state.
Yeah, and there's more students in southern Maine, so when you create the average student costs, I believe, mathematically, it will, and so my best example of that is in central Maine. Gardner educates their high schoolers for $10,000 a student. Augusta, it's like $9,500 a student for their high school students. And yet the maximum allowable tuition rate is at $13,100 a student. So you can see how that, so maybe there's some legislation that we can propose in the future. So let's see, property valuations I mentioned went up. It's more like 10%, not 11%. 132 million, 9.9%. That's another nothing we can do about it. And so that's going to decrease your subsidy. And so the other towns are going to feel it more than you. So we lost $179,000 in subsidy. And normally, a normal year, we're seeing increases of 200 to 300,000 to kind of keep pace with inflation and higher costs and salary increases. And so the fact that it's gone down almost 200,000 is going to really impact certain towns locally.
So effectively on this whole budget, that's $500,000.
Yeah, it is. Yep. So number 5, I wanted to draw your attention to the letter that the finance committee chair wrote, and everyone signed off on it. And we're trying to enlist your help here if possible. So we've got some legislation that either passed last spring, or which there's not much you can do about that now, or it's happening right now, and you can do something about that. So so we have this letter that I'm gonna skim to the bold items. And so what we're asking is for you to contact your legislators and hopefully you'll agree to ask them not to support some of these. But that's really up to you. LD 974 is an act. It actually started last spring and it was tabled or whatever they call it up there. And now it's back again. And it came out of committee, unanimously ought to pass, which was a little surprising. And what it does is it sets a minimum hourly rate for support staff that work in schools. And it's based off of the minimum wage. And so you can see it's, in ed tech is 150% of minimum wage. So the problem I have with that is just that, the market has been driving these costs and we are negotiating with support staff, and we know that we need to be competitive with surrounding districts, but also we need to be competitive with Target and Walmart and restaurants, and we have to offer something that people, and so we know that. And so I find these numbers a little bit arbitrary, and it may not be a big deal in southern Maine, but this is a huge deal for us and will be a real budget problem if this passes. Now, let's see, it was 2 weeks ago when it came out of committee. The amendment said it would go into effect July 1st, 2025. So giving us a year to get ready for that. The latest version, I didn't tell the finance committee, so there's a new version that came out, it's gonna start on this July. But they're gonna put a whole bunch of money into general purpose aid, so our subsidy would go up. But I don't know if it's gonna go up enough to cover the cost of this, so anyway, I am
Just
not,
like the last one, what did we get, $7,000?
yeah, it was, right,
And it's
so,
cost us probably almost 200.
yeah. So things are moving fast, and I'm not sure if people are really thinking about the impact of this, so. The next one is, it's out there somewhere, I'm waiting for it to pop up again, LD 1064 would set a minimum teacher salary of 50,000. And so, you know, last time they did that, it was fairly reasonable, I would say. I mean, not that I love the fact that we negotiate with teachers, and it seems like now the state is gonna do it for us.
Yeah.
So don't love that part of it, but if they did a ramp up to 50,000 over the next 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't see that as being a big deal, but I have no idea, we haven't seen the bill. So if you do contact somebody, just say, vote no, we'll figure out what to pay our teachers. Another one that is, seems like a real snoozer, but this could add $20,000 to our budget, is LD 1152. They're going to, it's proposed that there be a long-term disability insurance program through Maine State Retirement system. And what it means is on our payroll, we would have to contribute as an employer $102 per employee. And so for us, that's about another $20,000 we'd have to add to our budget. The next one down does not have an LD because it already passed last spring, and we're just, it's gonna go into effect next January. There's really very little we can do about it. We already built it into this budget. So there's a paid medical and family leave program being set up for not just school, but statewide, all employers. I believe of more than 15 employees need to be a part of it. And so you need to contribute 1% of your payroll to the program. And at this point in time, what the employer pays and what the employee pays is something you negotiate locally. And so we're in negotiations now, but we haven't really seen the rules, so we haven't yet negotiated, so there's just a lot of, but we had to add $100,000 into our, so when I said this, I should have said part of it, so this $232,000 increase, 100,000 of that is this program that was created. So one of the reasons why our salaries and things are not going up as much as you'd expect is because of the retirement and the new teachers that I mentioned. So that's one good thing, but all these laws coming at us is really putting a lot of pressure on this budget. LD 345 is very confusing. I have no idea if it's good or bad, or if it's gonna add to the budget. It basically says that school districts will educate 3 and 4-year-olds who need special ed services, and usually what happens is the state in Maine, CDS has educated those students, and CDS has their own budget. So the idea is that school districts will now do it, and the problem is, how is the money gonna flow, and will we get enough, and all of that. So it's kind of a it's puzzling. And then LD 1874, you should, if you want to, support that, because what they're trying to do is repeal it, because COVID, educators have special COVID days. If you get COVID, we won't dock your sick time. There's special COVID days that came through in statute, so we don't need that anymore, so let's repeal it, kind of a thing. Anyway, so lots happening at the state level, and anything you can do to have a conversation with your legislator and help them understand. I think they have so many bills coming at them that they don't often have time to understand, you know, the impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Page 16 is where your tuition students are going.
That's so, yeah.
High school.
High school, yeah. So page 16 is high school and page 17 is pre-K to 8. And this is next year. This is our projections for next year. So you may end up with more or less next year, depending on who moves in, but based on who's in town, right? So this, you'll notice if you do the math, these numbers don't add up to the, what was, because this is the future. So. And we still bus, our bus goes to Wiscasset High School, and it also connects with a Booth Bay bus. So the rest of the schools, parents need to drive their student to. I don't think Lincoln, yeah, Lincoln doesn't. Page 17 is where all the pre-K to 8 students are going, and your pre-K students, because we have a contract with Edgecombe, they generally only go to Edgecombe. And so that's just total guesswork. I have no idea how many pre-K students will show up next year, but 1 or 2 has been the norm. And there is a new school in the area that got approved by the state, and you have 3 students going there. It's called Brightfield, and it's in Bath. All right, that brings us to page 18. And this is the RSU 12 subsidy for education that we receive from the state. And you can see how it generally rises every year. It dropped during COVID when we lost a lot of students all at once. And now it's dropping this year as well. We did lose students, but really, so did the whole state of Maine. Really it's the property valuation that's causing it to go down. So page 19 is where the budget currently stands. There's still a lot of unknowns. For instance, we don't know what our health insurance is gonna be. We're gonna assume it's an increase. We budgeted a 10% increase for health insurance just to be safe. I doubt it'll be 10%. So I would expect this total budget number to go down a little bit because of the health insurance. And then other things can happen. People can, we could have another person say they're retiring. Any number of things can change between now and the budget meeting, but right now it's up 3.3%, and state subsidy is down 1.5%. Page 20 shows where we stand right now in terms of central office services. And this was a goal in the reorganization plan when all of these towns formed a school district, that they wanted to reduce their central office costs. And so you are now one of the lowest, if not the lowest per student in the state in terms of your, so we have some very efficient people in central office.
And we don't let Howie get much of a raise.
Page 21 is your cost centers that you're gonna vote on at the district budget meeting. And so regular instruction is our biggest cost center. And it's gonna be 13,931,000. That includes paying our staff, our teachers, ed techs, and then a big chunk of it is tuition. The tuition budget, oh, that's on the next page. I'll show you that. So that's up 3.2% or $441,000. The special ed budget is up 11%, primarily because of those out-of-district placements that we talked about. So 320,000 of that 546 is the out-of-district placement. The other thing that's causing special ed to go up is most of the support staff are in the special ed department, and those are the folks that are gonna potentially be affected by LD 974. So we've put some money in there. Well, we're negotiating for one thing, but also in anticipation of that. So those are some of the reasons for that going up. Other instruction is your athletics, and so that's down, just have less teams playing. Student and staff support is your library and technology, and that is doing okay, despite the fact that MLTI funding is less. Right there, system administration, school administration, transportation and buses has been a cost center we were trying to get under control, and so I feel like we're doing that. Diesel's kind of leveled off. And so we've got newer buses on the road for the most part, so that's settled down. Facilities and maintenance is energy costs, also support staff salaries, which are in this LD 974. We're getting ready for that. Debt service is down because the debt on 2 of our schools was refinanced by the state. So that actually helped us a lot. And then our food service program is running a surplus. So that's never happened before. And Richard mentioned we have a school nutrition director that was hired 4 years ago. And so he's making a big difference in terms of, efficiency and buying food that's free or cheap. And so we don't need to ask, we don't feel like we need to ask the taxpayers anymore we used to ask for $50,000 just to balance the food service budget. So Finance Committee decided not to do that this time. So
what is the food service? This is providing meals for the kids?
Yep.
And the financing for that is coming from where?
So the federal government gives you a set rate to reimburse you for every meal you serve.
Mhm.
So it's like $2.30 or something. And so you're supposed to cover your costs, your staff salaries, their benefits, the cost of the food, equipment, with that amount of reimbursement. And so it's tricky business trying to stay within that threshold. And so if you don't have, so before we just had head cooks in every building who just did their own thing, honestly. And so, and it was not efficient and it cost money and so he's finding ways of getting basically free food, like the free fish, for example, or farmers who are offering discounted food. Like there's also an awful lot of grants out there that help us that he applies for. So
even though you've paid for this position, this guy, this extra person, you're actually saving money.
Yeah,
Which is
right.
perfect.
Yeah.
And we're not feeding the kids processed foods out of a microwave anymore either.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, because he's a chef, he also trains our cooks on how to, chop quickly and all these things you need to know. So
Wonderful.
there's a lot to it. All right, so there's your budget at the bottom. Page 22 is just a breakout of the regular instruction cost center. And so at the bottom, you can see the cost center, it's up $441,000, which you saw on the previous page, 3.2%. So the lines above it all add up to the bottom number. And so it's just a breakout of what's it cost in our schools, and then what's tuition costing. And so K through 8 pre-K through 8 tuition, which is all on Westport Island, those rates are set by whatever the cost per student is at that school. And then I might get this wrong, private schools, it is a statewide average, I'm pretty sure. Public schools, it's whatever you're paying to educate your students, we pay the same thing. So so the real problem is 9 through 12 that we've talked about, that it's up 320, that's really the big chunk of the 441,000. And you can't, you just pay the bill, and everybody loves school choice, and that's the way it goes, so. But I just think it's important, or finance committee thinks it's important that folks understand that that's, there aren't any other places to cut, or run pretty efficiently. Page 23 is a graphic of the cost centers that we just talked about, the 11 cost centers. And I did break out the regular instruction, which is on the right hand side. So all that stuff combines it. So regular instruction is pretty much half the budget. And it's broken out. Now, the board wanted me to highlight the areas that are basically half the budget that we have very little control over at this point. So debt service, that those are 2 buildings that we're paying for right now. And then there's the tuition, got to pay that bill. And then special ed, there's just very little, we try to be as efficient as possible. We set up programs, but there's, it's largely driven by students' IEP and what their services are that drive the costs, so. Page 23, so on to page 24. The 2 right-hand columns is what, the numbers in the very right-hand column is what we're looking at, and then you can compare it to the last year, which is on the left-hand side. And so the proposed FY25 budget is at the top of the right-hand column. Then your state subsidy, which you can, if you compare it to last year, is down. Fortunately, miscellaneous is up. So that would be because interest rates are up. And so we're actually, we have money in CDs and our savings account and everything, and that's generating more revenue than it typically does. The other, moving down, we've got an interest credit from the feds. And then we have fund balance that we're using this year. And that's a number the finance committee would really like to see a lot lower over time. Otherwise, we're going to run out of fund balance. But we didn't feel like we could do it this year because this is not a good,
So what do you have currently for your fund balance or unallocated funds?
The COVID funds, the way we utilized them in such a way so that we ended up with a fairly large fund balance, knowing that using the COVID funds creates a cliff, right? So we have a cliff to get off of. So right now it's 1.9 million fund balance, which is more than we've ever had. But we can't go spending it all at once because we gotta sort of get off this cliff.
Is there a cap on how much you're allowed to have?
Yes, and the cap is, who remembers off the top of my head? 5%?
5%, I think it was.
And, but during, wasn't it 9%?
211, wasn't it 211?
Yeah,
5
so.
to 11.
Yeah, so they, it's generally 5%, but during COVID, for whatever reason, they said we could have as much as 11%. And that's still on the, until, I can't remember the year, so a few more years we can have, but even 1.9, in a $26 million budget, 1.9, I can't do that fast in my head, but, so yes, there is a limit. I think we're well within that limit. And we typically have a fund balance of about 500,000. So to have 1.9, it's really the result of all that COVID money that came in.
And the policy, and the board has instituted a policy, and what is that percentage of the budget?
I think that was the 5%.
Right.
5%.
Yeah, we'd like to hold on to 5% for bad
You know,
years.
if we go under 5%, we're not meeting the policy that the board has set forth.
Mhm.
So that's how you came up with the 700, not to put yourself.
The 700 is really just matching last year's 700. So last year it was a combination of fund balance and COVID funds. And this year, with the expectation that this year might have been more like 600 or 500,000. But because we lost subsidy, we just can't do it. Taxpayers would see a 10 or 11% increase.
Yeah, it says, but best of my knowledge, we're staying within that that 5%
Yeah.
of the policy.
And then the other piece that is fortunate is we have Spurwink has put a school in our district. That's a special purpose school. And they have a residential facility for foster students to live in. And we are responsible for educating some of those students, and we bill state because they're foster students. And so we are generating so much revenue through that we really need to recognize that, because those costs are actually in this budget, but there's revenue to match it. So so instead of just 30,000 in state agency client, it's we're estimating 130,000 in revenue. So your total revenue towards this budget is about 12,386,000. So that leaves a local share of 14,908. Did I say 14,000?
Yes, okay, we know what you meant.
14 million.
I like 14,000.
Don't get too excited. 14,000. Oh, all right, page 25 is how we calculate the local share according to our cost sharing formula. So we create a cost per student, which is just take the entire budget and divide it by the number of students listed on the ED 279, and you get a number 17,667. And we use that number, we multiply it by how many students you have listed on the ED 279, so you have 59.5 students. And so you end up with a number a little bit more than 1 million. And then you subtract the amount the state gives each town, because they list that out for us on the ED 279. So you're receiving 68,000. And you receive, the subsidy you receive is it's listed as special ed costs. So somehow they're tracking any special ed students you have in Westport Island, and we're educating them, and the state is giving you some percentage of that, because you're a minimum receiver, so you don't get anything else except for that special ed amount. And that can vary a lot at that Westport Island number. And so that brings you to a local share of 983,000. And then the next page 26, is just another look at the cost sharing formula and and how the different towns compare, because they're all very different in terms of how much money you get from the state. So everyone's paying the same amount per student, but Westport Island is paying locally more than the other towns, just because you don't get very much subsidy from the state.
Why don't we get very much?
Yeah.
Why are we so much lower than the other towns?
Because the way the formula works is it basically says, based on your student count, what's your valuation, it's like a ratio, what's your valuation compared to your student count?
Property
And
value.
property value,
Oh,
and so if you have enough property value to educate the students that you have, so you have 58 students, the state says, well, you don't need money from us. So you'll, like towns like Falmouth, they don't get anything either, and so if you, yeah, right, South
South
Portland, Southport,
Southport,
yeah, they don't,
Southport.
right, they're not gonna get, yeah, they have very few students and they've got lots of property on the ocean front, whatever. So if you had more students, right, if suddenly you had this huge population boom, then you might see more subsidy, because they might determine, oh, well, you need some help with that. So that's,
Or if suddenly waterfront property went down and got.
exactly, yeah,
The ocean dried up.
right, yeah, the ocean's gone.
That's what it would take.
We're a not eligible town.
But good question, because that gets confusing for
It's
folks.
very interesting the way that you've broken it down this way versus on the other page, because, it doesn't look too bad here to say that, our share is not as bad as some of the other towns, but then you look at for students that we're paying more than anybody else.
Right,
It's like, it's all in how you cut it
yeah,
and how you want to present it to the town, or
Yeah.
any town.
right.
Yeah.
And then in a town like Windsor, where their property valuation is changing a lot, because CMP, there's a hub there, and they keep building more and more stuff, so they can tax CMP. And so if you look at their chart over the years, they have gotten less and less and less state subsidy. They have more kids than you, but their property valuation is now higher than you.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a significant change over the last 10 years. So they still get subsidy just because they have, over 300 students.
350. Wow.
All right, so that is, so that brings us to page 27, which shows the impact for next year. And then, like I said, these numbers will change to some degree, probably go down. So it looks like it's a $36,000 increase for Westport Island. And there's the cost per student locally listed again.
Mhm.
And I believe that's a 3.8% increase approximately, if I'm remembering right,
For Westport.
for Westport. Now, the other towns, because they depend on subsidy, are seeing like 6.5% to 7% increases right now, so. Right, and then page 28 is our adult ed collaborative. And we pay our MS 8040 and RSU 12. There's a cost sharing formula for the collaborative based on census, so they pay a little bit more. But then our costs are shared amongst all the RSU 12 towns based on census. And so Westport Island will see an increase of $117 for the adult ed program.
I don't know how much we take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't know. Do people in Westport Island, so our new adult ed director is fantastic. And so she is the adult ed director for Booth Bay as well. And would like to see sort of a whole big collaborative with Wiscasset, Booth Bay, because I'm not sure you should get our brochure, but I'm just not sure. Some of it's online, so people
I've seen it
may
online.
do that. But yeah, geographically, I'm not sure how many folks would go to a class up in Whitefield,
Chelsea.
in Chelsea. So hopefully we can do something about that in the future. So, Wiscasset is now part of the collaborative in Topsom.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just took a course there.
Yeah, so. So there you go.
Interesting looking at sheet 28, that Somerville's cost sharing based on population census is lower than ours.
For which town?
Somerville,
Somerville.
4.93 versus 6.47 for us.
What page you on?
On
28.
page 28, adult education,
Oh, yeah.
the cost, that first column. And even Alden is less than we are.
So what does that mean?
That was based on a population census, so, you have slightly more population than Somerville. And Alden,
Population of students or population total?
total population.
I think we are bigger than both those towns.
You are,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what that says.
Okay,
That's why it's more.
okay.
All right, and, don't forget about the budget meeting on May 22nd.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know, do you want copies for your town office?
Oh, yeah, sure, we'll take
Yeah,
some,
Okay.
whatever you
we'll
got.
take those.
I'll leave these with you and the letter thing.
I'll probably scan these in and put them right on the website.
Yeah, perfect.
I think it's hard to absorb, partially because we also don't have a good feel for anything we can do about it.
I know, yeah.
It's like the
So we,
controllable versus uncontrollable.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we appreciate the work that you and the finance committee, and I'm sure Melissa have done to try to do the best you can
Right,
with the situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 yeah, we try. I'd say we're pretty successful, and then stuff like this comes along, it's like, wow. So, but
I'll do that.
Is there anything that you two want to add as being local? I know you did a presentation for us in January, which we really appreciated. but-
No, I think that the budget it's been worked hard. And it's, Howie has demonstrated the tight administration and well administration of the school. In what they can control and do control. And they look for all avenues to make maximum use of their resources. And we always appreciate in the past when we've asked, please write your legislators. You've done that, and please do that again. If you look at some of the items, they'll sound like they're the issues that have come up before. And to keep those kinds of decisions at the local level to allow school boards and towns and the schools to manage their schools. So, but it's an incredibly, if we talk about the nutrition program, which is a fabulous story, and you walk into the school board meeting and the kiddos and folks have got different samples of things that they've experimented with in how they've created things, or you see the aquaponics and the greenhouse and the kids learning these things, building around, and then it turns out into the nutrition program. Just the wonderful creative learning that goes behind, how they're using the resources, but also what they're doing with it, I think is really to commend Howie and his staff. So but they really work hard at the budget, and they really do try to keep it as tight as possible.
Not easy.
So I might add with your letters that the finance committee presented with the LD numbers on them. You have a link to your representatives. It's better to write them a letter. They're inundated so much with email that it's just like next. So letters have a better impact.
Interesting to know, thank you.
One of the things that I really like about what Howie and his staff have done is that they always seem to be on the leading edge of better ways to educate children. You know, and there have been other districts that have followed some of the things that Howie and his staff have developed. So
It's true, the science, there's what science and math programs. It's wonderful to, and it's all on YouTube. You might really enjoy it, is, because so when they come in and, it's on school board meetings and you can hear about those things, it's really quite terrific.
Yeah, the board meetings are on YouTube if you
Yeah,
have some spare time.
yeah. And,
But that, at the beginning of every most meetings, there's some kind of presentation about the learning that's happening with students.
But also in the administration of the schools, because, you know, so Russ, in addition to chairing the finance committee, is also in charge of the anti-bullying committee. And so RSU 12 was one of the, correct me if I'm wrong, but was what pioneered, it wasn't an anti-bullying committee.
No, there weren't any in the state.
Yeah.
and There was only one other one in the country.
Wow.
See,
That's
and
great.
so what we've been doing has been catching on. We've, in our third year of an anti-bullying poster contest,
It's so much fun.
and
Yeah.
the artwork is amazing. You can see it if you go to the RSU 12 website.
Mhm.
You can pull up last year's and the year before, the 12 finalists. The artwork's fantastic, so we give them a different theme every year.
Mhm.
And we work with the PBIS committee on that.
That's wonderful.
The culture of the school, so I mean, just permeates.
Yeah.
So the things that you see, that you don't have the opportunity to see perhaps behind the budget, but there's such quality there. It's really, it's a proud thing to be part of.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear. So, any questions from the audience for, by the way, Charlotte is now on, if you're taking the notes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you in May.
Yes.
we got a citizen issue there.
Are you ready now?
See you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Great to
you.
see you again, Erin.
Thanks.
I apologize, I'm gonna go tuck my kids in. I didn't realize this was gonna be such a
Yeah,
long
this is,
meeting.
okay,
And
we can
so-
plan for 2 weeks from now?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
this one was planned for this week.
Yeah,
and we
no,
knew it
and
was
not a
to get over
problem,
with.
I
Okay.
just, I'm not gonna,
Yep.
not or not.
Yeah, we just talked
I
about
can't.
kids, so go take care of yours.
So, all right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. All right, so we'll postpone that for a couple weeks. Let's go on to citizens issue, and I just wanted to do a quick update on because last time we met, you had an issue about the school policy, and I know Dee Dee was here. I did contact Dee Dee. Dee Dee, do you want to share what that policy is quickly? Because we do have a policy. I didn't know if we had one.
It's a 2-page form that they have to fill out and swear to, and we have to take identification from 2 different sides, 2 different columns. And then they also have to register to vote here, so they not only have to either have a rent receipt or own a home, they also have to register their car and also register to vote.
So they basically go through you and April
Correct.
to,
And you
To
work
confirm.
closely with Leslie, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sends me the list and I go
Right.
over it.
Right.
The only thing that I found that wasn't correct is that 3 children moved, but they're still on Westport, they're just at different addresses. That's the only thing I found.
so it was actually great that you brought this up, because it was like, oh, I didn't know that all this, so it's pretty detailed, so.
Yeah,
Anyway, because you brought it up 2 weeks ago, I had told you I would do the research, and, so thank you,
Thank
Dee,
you.
for doing the
Thank you, Dee
research
Dee.
on that, because it felt really good,
yeah,
that
Well,
somebody was taking
We
it.
can also find, Leslie and I do that usually once or twice a year, because we also find when parents move, we need to take them off the tuition list. And
Mhm.
usually I know anyway where I'm registering their cars.
Yep.
And then I'll just say, shoot Leslie an email and say, hey, are they still on our list? So we've caught quite a few.
Great, great. So other citizens issue, I know we had one that will come up in just a second, but I see two guests here. Do either of you have a citizens issue?
You know what issue I have.
All right,
So I was wondering what your plans are, because I got a few comments.
we actually did meet at 6 o'clock at our workshop and with Gary, our code enforcement officer. And tomorrow I will be contacting Mr. Wormwood and giving him some details about what he needs to do, and also include permits so that he can get his sheds built and do what he needs to do to move forward. And so I will be doing that tomorrow. And that will probably be the first step in continuing to support him. Because
Well,
I feel like maybe with some support, he can move forward.
yeah, I think so, because, according to his neighbor, he has been complaining to George. So that's 4 years ago. So if it takes 4 years to clean up a property, it's somehow disappointing.
Yeah.
And I went on the main state ordinance, and there are quite a few articles in there. They have plenty bite. I mean, groundwater, the water quality, ripping of the other, the things that is in your
Right.
regulations as well.
Already.
Yep, yep,
And the one thing it states in there, that town regulation have the right to be even more strict.
mhm,
Then the other thing it states in there, that if the owner does not comply, that the town has the right to go and clean it up and then charge him on top of his property taxes. I think that's the kind of things that you have to tell the gentleman.
mhm.
I typed up a little list, because basically what he sent you is an insult to your intelligence. I mean, it doesn't mean anything,
Mhm.
basically. But what should be done that, I don't know, you pass by every day as well, nothing has moved.
No, the cars are getting closer to the
Yeah,
road.
nothing has moved. So according to his list, he was supposed to do all these things.
Yeah,
Then
and
on his list, he says he contacted somebody to remove the cars. But you don't care who he contacted. You only care that at a certain date, whenever you say the cars are done.
Mhm.
You don't care if you want to sell all the images. You care that they are safe, stored on a piece of tarp or a metal bin, empty of the oil, so nothing drips into the groundwater.
Mhm.
And if he doesn't do that, then they should be removed. So basically, I think the list he gave you doesn't mean anything.
But I think the list would be helpful if he follows through with them, and I'm gonna use the list to get him kickstarted.
I took the liberty of type out the sample list, what you,
Mhm.
and I think you should get him in here on his wife. And then discuss it with him. And like I said before, if he doesn't follow the list, there should be some punishment, something. And he should be made aware of it. Once he's aware of it, and if the wife is here too, they cannot blame each other because of something has to happen. And yeah, 4 years it took. Took me 2 years to, I'm still waiting to change the sign.
I've been road commissioner for 2 years here. You need to go back.
So what should I wait, another 2 years until the sign?
He was waiting for Thor.
I'm waiting for.
said-
I've been working with posts and doing things, and I had no problem with frozen ground. Anyhow,
So we are moving forward. We did talk today, Mario, and with the CEO, and I'm hoping that,
Well-
tomorrow that,
I
We're-
pass by 2 times a week, so I will take some pictures as well for myself. But he said he would supply you pictures, so you should,
yes, and we are gonna ask first, because we want some before and after pictures, so, we'll be doing that tomorrow. So, we're trying to move forward with this. So,
that's it.
stay tuned.
Yeah, I will be back.
I know, we enjoy your company. By the way, Dee Dee, you don't, if, you're welcome to stay, but you don't
Yeah, I'll
have
hang
to.
out for a little bit.
Okay. You also have an issue,
Well,
a citizens issue.
we came up with an issue today, with the right landing committee, with the fact that somewhere between the well and the house, the line has some sort of a rupture. And so consequently, the line has to be replaced from the well to the house. And I checked with 3 of our members of the right landing committee, and we feel that, that's just too much of a chore for us. And that we, that the, town should go ahead and have it done. Either Hatch or somebody that will do that.
Yeah, you don't need to be
Professional
digging
doing that, yeah.
ditches, no.
So, and I can expand a little bit more on the status, that Hatch will be giving us a quote for the approximately 300 feet that he measured from the wellhead to the house.
Okay,
And so that'll give us a reference point
yeah,
and look at it. It may be something again where we might want to get some other quotes for that work. It doesn't have to be a well company to do it. It could be somebody else, just general contracting to dig the ditch. The complication is, and this is probably we'll need your help, Richard, is that we have the septic line also going in that same direction. And we have to be careful as we put in a new line, because probably today the water line probably goes under part of the parking lot.
yeah, it does.
We don't want to dig up the parking,
No.
so we want to go around the parking lot, and that puts us over in the general vicinity of the septic line. So there's a bit of care we'll have to take as we do this.
Yeah, I know exactly where the, septic tank is and where the pump is, and basically where that line goes, so, we go right alongside the parking lot, we should be okay. And then, but we do have that power line, that we'll have to have Central Maine Power show us where that is before we start digging.
Richard, do you know what so there's a spigot up there by the well, a faucet.
What we had done for the
The horticulture committee.
horticulture committee, we had put a pump up there underneath the tree.
Mhm.
And tried using that well,
Yeah.
and that well is just so
Did not work.
putrid. And there used to be another one just like that. One sitting close to where the privy is, but on the other side of but that got plowed over or backed over and,
It's too close to the road, yeah.
yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
used it about twice and that was it. So
Yeah.
now we have absolutely no water when we want to water plants. It's either I bring water from home or
Oh,
we
wow.
say, you make it or die.
You can't get some hose and run it to the house, the faucet on that side of the house?
We'd have to have a lot of hoses to, you could do down by the privy pretty much, but you'd have to have a lot of hoses. And one of our concerns was, I think we tried using it once or twice when we
Yeah.
just planted something, but we were also concerned, at that time, I think Ann was still living there, but we were also concerned about running the well dry. And that was a time when we needed the water because we had a drought. And if we have a drought, we need to worry about wells.
Yeah.
So we decided that the plants didn't need the water as much as the house did. So we have not used made any attempt to use any water from there for quite a few years now. Yeah.
Yeah, the lines are in place to that wellhead there. And, we could put another new one at the other end where that one has been destroyed. That's something the Right Land Committee could do, because one of the things that Craig and I were discussing last year is to bury a line underneath the surface, a foot or so, to where we would link into those, that line that we had the pump attached to. And then just, be able to take a hose from the spigot there, attach it to that on the other side of the driveway. And then you guys could have those two locations to be able to connect to water plants.
I just remembered as you were talking that there was actually one year when Richard had allowed us, you put the hoses from your house
Yeah,
all the way down and across. And so in order for us to water anything, we had to run up to his house, turn on the water there, and then there was a spigot somewhere else. We had to turn that on, and we decided that maybe we're not gonna
they
do
were
any.
getting a lot of exercise.
Yeah, and we decided that we're not gonna do annuals anymore. We're doing perennials, and the perennials either make it or they don't.
Yeah,
Unless we transplant something, and then generally I just bring water from home.
yeah.
And water it a few days if we're not gonna have rain, but, yeah, we've been pretty creative, and we're not spring chickens anymore, so it's just a little bit harder, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
none of us are.
I appreciate your efforts to help us with that, but it has been a problem. So we're gonna see what can be done about that. So you're working on that. You guys are working on that.
Yeah.
All right. Next issue, citizens issue. We have 2 complaints that came in this past week from the Baker Road again. We had sort of resolved that, we thought, and all agreed on what the boundaries were, and I'm sure you have seen it too, Jim.
Yeah.
And so, Jeff, today you talked to the lawyer today, and you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, and actually, into the Zoom, I put a picture that was sent us from Davy Zellen, who was one of those who brought it to our attention. It clearly shows that is one of the stumps and some other obstructions, including actually the road sign, there in the roadway. Where last year we had gravel put down, and so there's been clearly that creeping into the roadway. So that clearly is beyond the lines. But in general, he's got plants there as well that are past the line. So what our attorney has recommended says that we can take advantage of the judgment we got last summer, stipulated judgment, that he is in violation of that judgment, contact the sheriff and proceed with an action there to get him to follow through and maybe go through the court. In this case, though, we go through the court, we get court costs. We get our costs paid for to take this action. So we now have a stick that we can use to address this. We've been hoping that it would just settle down. It hasn't been an issue apparently for the plowing this season.
No. No, but it is creeping up there, and I wanna know why the sign is laying there.
Yes.
What's up?
Yep, all of a sudden.
Then it disappeared.
Yep.
Now it's laying there.
Yeah.
Whoever's playing games with the sign needs to put it back up.
Yep.
That's the other stipulation when you talk to the attorney and the sheriff. That sign is playing musical signs.
Mhm.
The whole thing.
The whole thing is crazy.
There's no.
It's
So
almost like daily. It's like, it's just a little bit every day.
it's a creep.
And so you don't notice it, so all of a sudden, like a couple weeks later, you say, wait a minute, why is all the gravel in his?
It's time for him to wave the retreat flag, to retreat again.
Yeah.
Because I'm not gonna keep spending money down there. When there's other roads where normal people live that need attention.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I can't put that sign up till I take care of this man right
There
here.
you go. You heard that, Mario. So your job,
We want that sign up soon though. The fire department also has complained about the absence of signs.
It shouldn't have been down because I haven't taken it down. I don't believe anybody that lives on that road has taken it down.
and Dale would have hollered if he had accidentally hit it.
Well, it was there, then it disappeared, and now it's back.
Yep.
Who would break, steal a sign and then bring it back?
It's kind of like fishing. Just put the little hook out there and are we gonna jump? But this time we
Yeah,
wanna
it
jump
used
at the
to be.
sheriff.
There's a gravel road
Yep.
there, and now he's got things coming up it. So you're gonna contact the sheriff?
Yeah, I'll address this tomorrow.
I
Okay.
don't wanna deal with it.
So tomorrow we address the sheriff. Tomorrow I'll deal with your issue. You got a copy for me?
Just a suggestion.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, but
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate you making the effort.
Thanks for.
Thank you,
good
Richard.
night, everybody.
Thank you, Mario. Okay. So those are citizens' issues. Moving right along here, not gonna do the town hall report. We're gonna wait on that. Ordinance committee updates. You wanna give us a quick update?
Real quick, we met a week or so ago. Jimmy was there, road commissioner, and we spoke about the entryway ordinance, and we're working on that, yeah, the driveways. So we had some discussion on that, and we're gonna be, the problem is where to put it. And there was a little bit of discussion about pulling it out and making it a separate ordinance along with the roads. And due to the time factor, we didn't think we had the time to kind of rehash everything. So we're trying to figure out a way to kind of interject it into the current building ordinance. And that's kind of where we're at. And then after that, I think we'll be ready to start moving things along in terms of scheduling for, public hearings on these. LD 2003 is in the mix of that also. There's some sticking points with that, but that's pretty close to being done also. So then it would be from there, having our attorneys look at them and then presenting them to the townspeople for question and comment kind of thing. We have time, a lot of time for that, so, yeah.
When's your next meeting?
The 28th of March, it's a Thursday this time.
Okay. All right. So speaking of roads,
I think you guys know everything. Mud is receding slowly. Keep raining every other day, so. Beaver, Yellow House, the Baker Road's on,
How's post office?
terrible.
Still really bad? Kind of
It is.
impassable?
It is in one
No,
spot.
it's better
It's
than it,
better than it was.
yeah, it's not great,
It
but
was scary.
yeah,
Oh, it's rough, there's no question.
there's no more mush, there's just
No.
holes.
Yeah.
You gotta avoid the holes.
Well, you could, yeah, okay, at least that's
It's
doable.
Well, you won't sink out of sight, but you'll definitely be doing this.
Oh, yeah,
Going by the Hamiltons.
well, I
Yeah,
guess
that's
you don't
right.
have to worry about speed bumps or anything then because you have it built in.
Yeah.
They'll, those speed bumps will always be there until there's some ledge removed or an act of higher powers. There's just nowhere for the water to go.
Yeah.
When you have water, you get all the holes, you get mud, you get rocks.
Well, luckily there's 3 ways in and out,
Right,
you know?
well, the other end ain't much better, the intersection.
Yeah, and then it
Then
floods,
back.
then we have
And then the hill
the
on one
causeways
side.
overflowing and then you're just,
The good news, I think, this year is actually the lower end of West Shore Road was not too bad.
No, I was surprised, just that little shaded spot before you break out to
Yeah.
your driveway there. You go across Post Office Road right now and you can see every shaded spot where the sun never shines. Cause it's wet, wet. I think the frost is pretty well gone, other than those places that never see the sun.
Cut trees.
I told Jeff I could solve Post Office Road, I just keep cut 100 feet of trees all the way down. That's
Or let them fall.
probably
Those
going.
darn
Well, it's
trees.
somewhere heading that way. So again, the south end of the main road used to also be a problem where it's gravel. And that doesn't seem to be this year, and I don't think last year either, at least not so much.
Not as bad up the further
Yeah.
end, up past the cistern, up there, it got a little And it wasn't, you know, rock and panel deep by any means, wasn't bad. And I went in Harriman Point Road, Bay Shore Road. Bay Shore Road is just night and day from last year. And we've only done just a short part of the road.
But you got one of the worst spots.
Yeah.
That was really, really good.
This road got a little soft further over, which it always does right there. It's the east-west,
Now,
it never gets no sun.
how is Sortwell Road doing now?
It's rough because now there's rock, old cars up.
Yeah.
And that'll have to be addressed when we get out and do some other work. At some point in time, it's gotta dry out for doing it. Grader, I mean, last year was the beginning of May, end of April. Hoping maybe we can do something a little bit earlier, but if you do it too early, you end up creating your own mess, no money. People keep asking me, calling me, but last Thursday night, I think it was like 6 calls about posted roads. I wish people would stop and read the posters so they understand. I can't say, you can go in here and do this, because then, if I do that, this guy over here is gonna come and say, well, you let him do it. I don't want any trucks on these roads right now, they're not dry enough. No exceptions.
So they were calling you for what, to get an okay? Or is-
Yeah. Which sometimes you,
That would be appreciated, right?
well, not appreciated, it's a matter of, they don't want you to limit commerce, that's the biggest thing. With these road postings, that's why the state doesn't post their roads. Because you're limiting people's ability to make money,
Yep, yep.
and you're affecting the economy. There was a morning, it was below freezing. It was a courtesy call, I gotta move a boat 300 feet up the road. It's below freezing, I won't stop you because I can't, because you're abiding by the poster. I don't see many freezing mornings coming up. So, you know, Casella has called me, Casella Waste. Is this road posted, is this road posted? They called me about Pierce Road, but no, it's a private road, but you can't get there. Cause it's posted. What about Passenger Road? Well, that's a private road off the state road. Have at it. So yeah, that's people just gonna read the sign and as soon as they're dry enough that I feel we can take them down without going backwards, I'll take them down. But till then, you know, we spent too much money, we're heading in the right direction, can't go backwards.
Yeah.
And I just wish people would stop, read the poster, that's how it's gonna be.
Yep, they're contacting you in hopes to get around it, for you to
Right.
say yes.
And, you know, a hardship case, last year a fellow called me and he says, this guy has his truck stuck over on this job and I need to take a bigger truck in and pull him out. Well, that's a different story because that's a recovery
Mhm,
type deal.
mhm.
I had no problem with that, one-time thing in and out.
Yeah.
So there are exceptions, yes, to be honest with you, yes, there are. And there's vehicles that are exempt. Grain trucks, milk trucks, plow trucks,
Oil.
CMP,
Yeah,
oil
fuel
trucks,
trucks,
propane
yep.
trucks.
What about UPS and FedEx?
They're right on the limit. They're right on the limit. And when I was having the problems down on Saltwell Road, another fellow that I know that's a road commissioner that was having some problems, he called the state. State says I can lower these signs down to 8,000 pounds if I want. So you couldn't even take a pickup, 3/4 ton pickup truck in there.
Wow.
Or I can barricade it off. And just say, nobody's gonna drive on it. And I said, well, what about the liability of that? There's no liability, it's an act of God, it's considered an act of God. So if I put a barricade in, up at each end of the post office room, that would be it.
Act of God.
We're gonna stay home.
We're good.
But I wouldn't, I mean, that would be the last case.
Yep.
So I would try and make an attempt to do something, even temporary, like I did on Solo Road before I put a barricade up.
Mm,
Which is what I had to do on Solo Road, because the only other option was don't let people drive on.
even people who live on that road?
Anybody.
If you got mud this deep, does it really matter whether you
You're not
live
gonna
there
make
or
it home.
not? I mean,
True.
you're not going through.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't go through it. So I knew the day that I didn't dare go through it, this road needs something done to it right now.
Mm,
Cause you know, I
So Jim, this has been an interesting year because we've had very, in some ways limited mud season, but severe in certain
Right.
places.
Yeah.
And it made me think that maybe one of the things you could look at is picking one of those bad spots and let's eliminate, take some of the road maintenance money and do what's necessary so that we don't have the freeze thaw. If it's a ledge problem, if it's,
Right.
don't have sufficient base,
that's what that was what I did on Solo Road last year, that was phase one, cause that spot just past Dave Lenz's,
Mhm.
that falls apart every year, has for years. And I'm sick of it falling apart and having to deal with it to some degree every year. That's why I want to ditch it, and now I need the hammer to get the ledge out of the ditch that we exposed. And right where that spot is, I believe there's a ridge of ledge there that's holding water back. And I think there's a spring there under the road. It needs a way to get to the ditch through that ledge. So that is kind of why that work was done, leading up to this year's work, which will hopefully alleviate that spot.
mm,
Cause other than that spot and the spot that showed up this year, just a little short spot. That road's really in not bad shape, ready to put some gravel on and say, there, now I don't have to dig the road up to change the culvert or
mm.
good, we can put some gravel on it and grade it and once this next round of work is done. Same thing I'm trying to do on Bay Shore, I'm trying to get them two roads so we can have a decent road and now I can go somewhere else and concentrate on
Post office road?
maybe.
I think it's some of the things where it's a recurring issue, you've been dealing with it now. But if we can get sort of, as you say, check something off, so yep, we took care of that.
Right,
What you did for Bay Shore last year, it has made a significant improvement for that section. And I'm sure that's what you kind of want to keep doing.
it is, and as I mentioned, the other end of Post Office Road. And when you take a left and you know that up through there, never sees any sun yet, it's
Yeah.
all facing hill,
Yeah,
there's ledge there. There's ledge there and it drives the water out into the road and it soaks into the road, there's no ditch on the other side at all.
Mm.
And all the way down around the corner, there's chunks of ledge that stick out in the ditch and that's why that hill going down to the causeway is all,
All right, so stay tuned for next meeting.
always.
Yeah, so we'll go on with correspondence, which actually does touch also on roads again. We have, we have noticed that, DOT is going to be doing some bridge wearing surface replacement. We don't have a date when they're gonna do it, but they've sort of warned us that it's happening. So I know as we learn more that, April will keep us posted on that. You wanna talk about the CMP?
Yeah, I put these both in the newsletter that I sent out earlier today, but essentially CMP sent me a letter that said, we're gonna cut down trees near the lines and trim branches, and we may or may not tell you, so be warned, I guess. So I mentioned in my newsletter, if people have trees near the lines that they're fond of, they might wanna call CMP. I don't know if it'll make a difference, but they were kind of just putting us on alert that that's happening. And then we had another letter from the Department of Agriculture about brown-tailed moth. The nests are looking pretty bad, mostly north and west of us, not Lincoln County as bad as some other counties, but you know, they expect it to blow around and affect us and stuff, so. Just a warning on that to sort of prepare and, that was in the newsletter as well, and there's a link to the state has a list of pesticide applicators that can help if you've got nests. That's my correspondence.
And Dennis Dunbar sent us an update. He said that that our maps that are on our website have been updated.
I don't know if that's true. I told him that I would put it in the new website, which I'm working on, but I haven't, gotten there yet. I
Okay.
can update the old one. That should be pretty easy to switch out the PDFs, so I'll do that this week.
So what is the CIS conserved area?
It's one of the
It's the
it's on the left.
public lands of Westport Island. It's like any,
Yeah, it's on the, when you go to the website.
I don't know what CIS stands for, honestly.
Oh, I probably spelled it wrong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I didn't, I was worried about the conserved area map. I was getting that right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
is this showing the kelp preserves, the Clough Point?
Yep, town-owned kelp preserves, any easements,
Yeah, and he sent a picture of the
Comprehensive.
map and,
Okay.
yeah, but it,
protected lands.
yeah,
Yeah, whether they're accessible to the public or not, it's a really great.
but they're, forget the tab that's on the left, but all the different, choices that you can,
Layers.
thank you.
Yeah.
I could see it here. but-
I know.
Oh, yeah, it's like, yeah, when you click on layers, it comes up to the conserved area. It-
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, that's, I was,
This
trying
might
to
be a
make sure.
different issue. He sent me just the map. It's
Yeah.
just a plain PDF, one layer map. of-
but I actually went on there today to see, it, and you can click on that.
So-
I don't know if it's updated, I don't know what it was before he sent,
Okay,
yeah,
excellent. Well, that's good.
yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge that since he sent us the information.
Mhm.
And also he sent us a note about the sea level rise adaptation study, and I just want to call out that they're working on that, and what I'd like to do is invite him when they have more information to come back and talk about this. Because they actually have 3 scenarios that, it was very interesting, his email, I don't know if you read it or not, but one of the ways to get around, either you have to, because that's right, you wouldn't have seen it, but either, one strategy is to just, take care of it based on,
If we don't get the grant, is.
Yes.
is-
yeah, the way that the grant is, we're working on now is 4 feet of sea level rise. Another option would be to, if we didn't get the grant, is to do 1.5, to base it on 1.5. So in other words, not do as high or as much work, but do it in stages. So you do this, and then a few, 10, 20 years later, you've got to do it some more, because now sea level has,
Because the grant is through what, 2100, is it? It's
I think it's, I
covering
thought it was 4.3 or
the,
4.
the year though.
Oh,
The year, I
the
think
year.
it was,
To plan for.
yes, to
Yes,
plan for,
yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
yeah.
And there's the third option, which I thought was really interesting, was that if we got no grant or whatever else, and this was actually an option that was proposed years ago, was to actually do a sort of a bypass. Yeah, to go sort of, and you might want to see the picture here, Jim. So here's the causeway and whatnot, but you come across here. Here is West Shore Road.
Yep.
And here's Post Office Road, and just connect the two and not deal at all with Heels Cove or any of that area. Maybe cut right through April's property or something.
Nice, cool.
It's cutting
I know,
through
I'm like,
somebody's
what is
property.
going on over here?
Yeah, I think you're.
Some kind of
very
eminent
close to-
domain
We
situation?
just turned Post Office Road back to the people that live on it, and they can have their private road.
And evidently that was proposed quite a few years ago. His text is so tiny, but,
Wow.
which I found interesting. I'd never seen anything like that. I don't know if you had before, but,
No,
that, bypasses are how you, sometimes deal with issues
That
that you
would be
can't.
like,
It doesn't go through my property, it's.
I know, but it's getting close there.
they that, you done?
I think it looks like maybe Connie's property.
No, it's the one across the pond from her, the Rhinelander.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ned-
Well, there, it's Ned's up above,
Yeah.
but I think Connie has the property on the far side of the pond.
Segerstrom.
And that,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that, backs on the Segerstrom
Never let
Preserve.
us put a road through there.
Ned must be this.
This was a last
Anyway,
ditch choice,
yeah.
but I
Oh,
thought it was kind of
hold on.
interesting and
This
I'm
is-
hoping.
Yeah,
it'll
yeah,
come
no,
to
you're
our
right.
property more.
You're right,
Maybe
this
we'll
is
get
Jeanette
the
Brown's,
right
right,
one.
that's,
Yeah.
all right, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
With
but
Vincent and
coming back,
stuff, I
so
feel
I think
like
Connie
we need
owns
to address
this,
At
and
least
then Segerstrom.
let them know that.
That'll be over this right here.
So
right
these people would
Acknowledging
just be up the creek, they have a private road now?
Well, no, they, well, private road. What, actually, making something private
Up the
after it's
creek.
public is not necessarily an easy thing to do.
No, no, because you still assume liability and maintenance for like 20 years or something.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean we're off the hook.
Anyway,
The,
We can definitely go through.
we have
all
like
these.
500 more
Yeah.
things on this agenda, just want to
Yeah,
remind people.
so I'm gonna put yours closer at the end so that we can work through some of these,
Yeah.
on admin items.
Okay.
Approval of the town hall rental agreement. You propose something for us?
Yeah, I made a couple of changes pursuant to Lisa and Jeff's comments. So you're right, if you're doing BYOB, you shouldn't need like workers' comp and all that other stuff. I think that's a typo. So I did a strike through, I'll double check with Brandon, from the attorney's office to make sure that's okay, but it doesn't seem right to me that you would have to have anything besides liability.
It's listing every type of liability.
Right, well, something a vendor would have. If you're an alcohol vendor and you cater events, you would have workers' comp if you had employees.
If you have employees, if you don't have employees, you don't.
Yeah. I don't know, I'll ask him about it, but we can definitely address that. And then in terms of the 10 days versus 3 days, I'll have to read it more carefully, I was just browsing it, I'm not sure that's a conflict, because the application
I
says,
know,
give me the stuff within
understand
10
that.
days to secure the date, and then the rental agreement says, within 3 days of the event, we have to have this. So those things, because we don't know how close you'll be approving, that's kind of like a movable window, so I think it's okay if I don't think they're contradicting each other, is what I'm trying to say, I'm a little tired, but I think it's okay.
Yeah.
So if you guys are like generally okay with this stuff, I will mop it up with the attorney,
I'm fine with the application.
Yeah.
I still would like to get more into the agreement. So I still have some forms. I think with the rental guide, I'd suggest we don't make that something that has to be approved necessarily, but just that you have the master, the town clerk has the master, and it will get changed.
Yeah.
It'll get updated.
right?
Because a number of things I said in my comments were that needed to be changed from that version.
Yeah.
But they could change again next year.
Yeah.
So I think the rental guide is actually amazingly complete.
Oh, thank you.
So there's a lot there. It should answer pretty much anyone's questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
And make
And
it
thank
clear.
you to Dee. Is Dee still here? Because she helped,
Yeah.
you know, make sure we got everything.
But I'd like to come back to the agreement.
Yeah. I saw your qualm in terms of would it prohibit certain WCA events? The way it's been rewritten, it would allow more things than previously written. Previously written, you had to have a licensed vendor. So what the WCA was doing, is it really legal? We were skirting that. Now we've made it legal for them to do BYOB. I don't know if there's any scenario where the WCA themselves could serve alcohol legally because they're not a vendor, they're not licensed in any way to do that. If you have people bring their own, then you're sort of like, oh, hands off. Like, could the WCA, could Meg bring her own bottle of wine? Yes, but she can't bring 10 bottles of wine to serve to everybody else. BYOB is people bring their own for themselves, they're not to serve to others. That's where you cross the line.
Yeah, but that's not how they operate the meet and greet, for example.
Mhm.
So we're basically illegal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like a taste test, yeah.
yeah, so I think that's why I'd like to get back to that. I have a lot of qualms, and I had qualms with the original version, going back 3 years ago. And again, it's just, we want to enable people to be able to use the hall.
Yeah.
But
I
we want to protect the town from
Right.
liability.
So you don't have qualms with it so much as you want it to be even more expansive. It's more expansive than the one before, and you're saying, let's expand it even more.
Well, I think we started off, and again, I'm not sure the version that you're working with, we started off with one where They pretty much had to get the insurance writer for alcohol. And have that covered, and that's what originally had us protected. You're gonna have alcohol there, you gotta have the insurance coverage, when you apply for your insurance for the event. And that had us covered.
Okay,
We
but I
thought
don't, I
it
don't
was
want this to
covered.
take forever, because we have people backing up, we have old paperwork that's very wrong, this new paperwork is much better.
Which is why I
Can we
have
put
it
it
on the
into
agenda.
practice and then improve it as we go along, because this is better than what we have, Jeff. So if I need to go forward giving people the old paperwork, they're gonna be able to do less than this current paperwork, and then we can make it better.
Well,
Can
if
we
it-
just get the better one into practice and then improve it?
Well, we could go that way, and truly, they don't need to have anything to do with alcohol. I think that, the other qualms aside, I think that would be fine. Again, you have an awful lot more stuff there,
Yes.
so it's
It's
much
better.
more, well,
Let's not
it's
make-
much more legalese.
Yeah.
But I think we want, before we drop it, I'd like to make sure that we can support the community groups with the agreement.
Okay, so can we
See you later,
preliminary?
folks.
Good night.
Good night, Tim.
Thank you.
All right,
So
so,
what were you gonna say?
No, I was just wondering if you needed me for anything.
no,
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 we're good.
thank you for
Thank you, Dee.
We always need you, but not tonight.
I'll be here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right, so I'm gonna take each, we're not gonna approve the town rental guide. It sounds like, are you?
We're gonna prove it, but just
Yeah,
understand that
it's-
that's gonna be,
It's a work in progress,
Okay.
it's not done.
So I have three things to do here, just on this. I'd like to move that we approve the town hall rental application.
Application, agreement,
Well-
and guide.
Do all three?
Yeah, why not?
Okay,
because I wanna vote for favor of one of them.
Oh, okay, okay.
okay.
I thought we were voting in favor of, I thought you were on board with voting in favor of
Well,
using the ones we
we're
have.
gonna
and
vote on
improving
all
them.
three and see where we go.
Okay,
All right, so I'd like to move that we approve the town hall rental application. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
uh,
Aye. All right. I'd like to move that we approve the town hall rental agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
and I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. And I'd like to move that we approve the town hall rental guide. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Okay, while we're on that, I'm gonna jump to the liquor license request here because it looks like we need to sign it or not.
I believe so. At the end, there should be some spaces for municipal official signatures. This is Applecroft.
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It's a caterer. They did this last year too. They cater a wedding. They're catering a wedding at the Tarbox Inn.
So they're another organization catering something at Tarbox. It's not Tarbox and it's somebody else doing it.
Somebody else doing it.
Okay,
So they feel they should get a separate application.
And that's fine if they wanna do it.
Yep.
okay. So I move that we approve this application for a catering function with,
And what's the date?
it is,
August 10th. I think.
Yep.
yeah,
Ahead of time.
Yep, so that's great. I'd second that.
all in favor?
Uh,
Aye. So we need to all sign down here. Are we this?
You're the municipal
Officials.
officials. Yeah, I think all three couldn't hurt.
Yep, since we're right here.
Put your name on there. Select board. Let's talk while we're doing this about our schedule, meeting schedule, because I'd like to literally meet next week and start, actually, next week, meeting weekly.
Right.
Because next week I'd like us to finalize the revaluation RFP. And I'd also like to propose and have us finalize the plan for the budget hearings that will start at the beginning of April.
I planned vacation so that I wouldn't miss a meeting. So, yes, I could get on Zoom, but being on Zoom for a board meeting doesn't feel like it's vacation. It feels like I have to come back from vacation.
So don't,
to do this. Well, so then I'll let you two decide whether you want to suddenly have a meeting or not.
not so much suddenly I want to have, I'd like to propose that we meet next.
Yeah,
week.
but
Well, we
that's-
can keep it limited so that something, if you have something you're concerned about, we can table it. But those are the two things that I thought needed to be done before April.
And what are they again?
The revaluation RFP.
But that revaluation RFP we've been working on for 6 months, so it's like if it waits one more week.
If waits more, we're actually up against line in order to get it in and approved at the town meeting. Given the time we want to have it out there, we don't really have much more time. And I apologize, I should have brought this up. I had it originally, we were going to be taking it up a month ago, and we haven't.
Yeah, well.
We
we've been
started
working
focusing on
for
other
6
things.
months. Yes,
yeah.
yes. So for me, it feels like we're suddenly panicking at the last minute, and that doesn't feel comfortable, so.
And what was the other thing?
If we don't, then we won't, I don't think we'll have time to take it up in front of the town meeting if we postpone it to
And
2
1
weeks.
week?
1 week. I actually, in the email, I kind of walked through, I think, a
Yeah,
little bit of the schedule.
Yep, I didn't see the email.
So this, most likely, the likelihood of us getting somebody next year.
The evaluation, I'm not zero, it's
Right.
2026 and 2027.
Right,
But-
so what, we have to get approval at the town meeting for
To
entering
approve any,
into a
for a contract,
contract.
that's right. So if we want to lock them down, we need to get their price.
Will they do that, though?
I believe so. I think they have to. But I'm gonna confirm that, okay? Lisa, so I want to have it all nailed so that we can say, yep, we know what we're getting into next week.
And what's the second item that you think is so critical?
The budget plan, just basically to say this is when we're going to, I want to finalize it with Ashley. We didn't do
But we
that.
haven't talked about it even among ourselves.
We did talk about it. I actually shared it with you
You
weeks
shared it with
ago.
us, but we haven't talked about it.
Right,
Budget
Yep.
schedule?
that's
Yeah,
right.
what you're saying?
So that's
Yeah.
why I'd like to finalize it next week, at next week's meeting. Because we've sort of talked about the categories, we haven't firmed up when we want people to come in and present.
So,
Yeah, but, okay, but I'm not comfortable doing these heavy duty things without Donna, and she's on vacation. And I don't think she should be bothered when she's on vacation.
Are you just on vacation next week? Or-
yeah, well, I'm leaving, I'm intentionally not leaving until Thursday, so I could make this meeting. We had, next week wasn't a meeting, so that I had that time to travel.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to miss a board meeting, and knowing that we already had planned the meeting for the month. Laura's coming in, flying in tomorrow.
Okay.
And so she's gonna be here a couple weeks, but, you know, my goal is to make sure I try not to miss meetings, except when I'm really, really gone someplace, but, you know, I made it a point to plan this so that I wouldn't miss a board meeting. You know, we meet every week, but that's just, you know, an open meeting, and we can talk about stuff, but when we have to make decisions, it just feels very uncomfortable, because the two of you are gonna make decisions. And neither of these things, it's like, one, we've had many, many months to talk about this. And the other one, you handed it out, but I don't remember us talking about it. So I thought we were gonna do that last Thursday, actually, and we had a guest. And it feels like we could start that process even if we don't have everything finalized. If we could decide that in 2 weeks, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, I can tell you what I talked about with Ashley, though I haven't finalized it. And if we can agree on it, then we can then tell people we want them to come to those
Yeah,
meetings.
but I think not just talking to Ashley, also letting us and.
Well, no, but
Yeah.
my point is, Ashley we want to make Ashley core to this budget
Yes,
process.
absolutely,
So I want to work
absolutely.
around
Yep.
what Ashley can
Yep.
do.
Yep.
Because she also has some prep work. So that's
Yep.
why I didn't want to try to do it, because
Which just sounds like another reason to sort of postpone it, to make sure she has enough time to
but-
get it done.
well, in terms of the schedule, we can. It's just finally, I did talk about it with her last week, but we didn't nail it, and we hadn't talked about it.
Yep.
So, and I haven't, it's kind of just making sure I don't step on toes, okay?
Yep.
So the toe I'm trying to step on here is, let's firm up the schedule. And maybe if it makes it easier, we'll sort of say for now, that talk with Ashley, the first session we do is really on revenue. So what's our
And
projections?
we can say that right now, that in 2
That's right,
weeks,
we can say
2
that.
weeks, we can talk about revenues,
Yeah.
gonna be one of the warrant items that we're
Right,
talking about.
so
That's right, so let me finish. So
Okay.
I'll give you that proposal, we can get that one off the table.
Okay.
So at least the next couple we're done, we can tell
Yep.
people to come to that meeting.
Yep.
So the first one we'll do in 2 weeks will be for the revenues. So that's the excise taxes, projections there. That's what we project for property taxes, what we project for state reimbursements. So those are things that, much of that is Ashley, and it's also in a sense us, in terms of the assessing side. The second one, which is more the simple one, is the social service agencies, and do that the following week. So that's the Humane Society,
All the things that. we-
all those things.
that
And things again, like the rec center, so the things that we get from elsewhere that are again kind of fixed. We can kind of go through those and get any inputs or comments from those organizations for that meeting.
So I'm gonna go back 1 second. So next, 2 weeks from now, we're gonna talk about revenue and what else?
All the
Just the
revenues.
revenue
All
for
the
the
revenue.
first
All the
week.
revenues.
The second week would be social service.
Yep, I got that one.
Yeah, so coming out of that, we should have a pretty good idea of what we think our revenue base could be as we start looking at the budget.
Anyway, yeah,
And then we move into the expenses. And an easy one is the social services. And then to firm up further what we do in terms of the public safety, the roads.
and that's what we have
And
our Thursday
administration.
meetings to really finalize sort of those, but right now, we can say in 2 weeks, we're gonna talk about revenue.
And at that point, finalize the rest of
Yep.
the schedule.
Absolutely.
We can do that.
Yep.
So I'm.
Does that work for you?
Okay, but I am still very concerned about getting a revaluation RFP agreed to. And you're not,
I feel uncomfortable because it feels like a panic now when we had many months to work on it.
Well, we haven't really discussed it much since the last time you presented it. And then we also, I would think you want to run it past the attorneys before we do anything with it also.
well, I'll tell you, if it's okay with you, I can run it by the attorneys. That would be one of the steps, because I wanted to get us to say it's done. So for example, we're gonna be talking about the assessor,
Yeah.
assessor's agent. So what I'd like to do there is get agreement that the RFP is good, we're good to put it out.
Right.
And then I can put together a quick ad to go into the Lincoln County News, and I can send it to the attorney to finalize. That doesn't affect the ad, but the ad needs to go in tomorrow. And then, so that's getting us approving it first, and then the attorney making whatever changes. But we've got something that we can send out at that point, and use it for the ad. For the revaluation, we could, I can send it out now to the attorney and get the comments there, and then whatever
Is there
modifications.
still the one thing that we were talking about, performance bond?
Yeah.
That we didn't,
I'm not sure what,
so would that be something the lawyer could say?
yeah,
Yeah, so there's things that we don't know for what we should do and.
and that's part of what
Let's
I,
get the input from the attorney.
yeah, that's part of what I said, yeah, I had a conversation with select board member from Rousick later this week, to try to, again, to find out some of the other nuances. Talking with Evan, he wasn't quite sure what the purpose of the performance bond was in a revaluation.
It's not in this one, this draft, is it?
It is.
It isn't.
Well, it is and it isn't. I put it in there as a bullet because
Ah,
it
yes,
wasn't
I remember
actually
that.
what
Yes,
I
yes.
pulled out of
Yep,
the others.
yep.
But it's referenced in them. So I
Yep.
said, what's the deal? Why you talk about it being needed, but then you don't reference it in the contract? So I hadn't resolved that. But that was again something that I can resolve with the attorney.
Yeah.
So it sounds like something that you can do and get started on, even if we don't need this.
Okay, I can do this, as long as we get it out and can have it out the door so that in 2 weeks, it's all set to go.
To go,
To send it
right.
out.
Right.
Okay, so next month's meeting and workshop schedule for the month of April, you're gonna start meeting weekly in April.
Yes, we've been
Yes.
talking about that.
And that's,
April 1st.
April 1st.
yep, are there any weird tricky holidays? I don't have my computer. I don't think so, right?
No, I
We
think-
mentioned that.
Easter's this.
Easter
The
is
31st.
31st, yeah.
Oh, next.
So this is Easter Monday.
Yeah, okay.
We celebrate that.
Okay.
Great.
Next on the agenda, the CMP poll approved request, is that,
Jeff, do you have the paperwork or did I put it in Donna's folder?
it may be in the
I don't
folder,
think
there was
so.
something about.
That's it right
yeah.
there. Yep, I don't, Jeff did the little legwork on this, it's just they're asking for permission to put in a poll, they need your approval. Jeff, you wanna tell them where it is and what it's?
And where is the poll?
CMP owns that particular pole. What they're asking for is putting in a stub, a short pole that'll be used for the bracing line going across the road. If you look at the little picture there, that's the pole. This is where the stub's gonna be.
But where is it?
It's up on the North End Road. It's up near Trans.
I didn't think they ever asked for, because I know they put it on different, maybe they've always asked the property owner.
And in this case, they're putting it into the right of way, into the shoulder for the North End Road.
So do you see any issue with this?
No,
Okay, so I make a motion that we allow CMP to put in their poll. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
all right.
Okay, so we need to, there are a bunch of little boxes all over the place here. This is not the box. Here, but I'm just curious, because there are boxes here and on,
It's just a standard form. They
Okay.
they basically filled it out. And some things maybe they didn't have any fill.
well, not having read it. Okey dokey. One of the things I wanted to make sure we mentioned tonight was, Pedro Gimeras had asked us to, he had concerns about a couple of our, meeting minutes and asked us about changing them. And, I have been in conversation with him. And actually, we as a team met and agreed that the statement that we made in January of 2023, where the comment was made that the owner had approved.
Given permission.
Had
Use the
given
term, yeah.
permission. That the owner was not the present owner at that time, it was somebody from years ago. So we agreed that, that probably it could be misconstrued. So I'd like to make a motion that we, and April actually has done the research and we found out that we can change any meeting minutes if we feel like there's a need to. So I'd like to make a motion that we make that change to take out, and I can give you the exact wording, but.
Reference to owner permission.
Does he
Yeah.
wanna
Use the
remove
term.
that statement or did he wanna like adjust the wording?
Just
former-
just remove that
Just
statement.
remove it. Okay.
Yes. So I'd like to make a motion that we remove that. Do I have a second?
Second?
And all in favor?
All right.
All right, and he had a second thing that happened on February 5th when he was on Zoom. And there was this, a comment made in the minutes that said that Pedro reminded the select board that since he had no contract for his work on the website, he could delete the website. He was clear that that was, he didn't say that because he wanted to threaten or whatever else, but he just was trying to make a point. And so we talked about that as a group and
We don't need it.
We don't need it.
we don't
And
need
and can I
it.
just say, as an umbrella, these are minutes that basically have to reflect actions. We don't have to go into the detail that we do in our minutes.
And we're not misrepresenting
Right,
anything that was said either.
And
Right,
there is video, so you know, we really can leave out some of those quotes. So I'd like to make a motion that we delete that statement in its entirety. Just that one statement. Do I have a second?
second?
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. And April, here's the one quote on the 2.5. All right, just a couple more things quickly, and then we'll go with the last item. We like to make a motion that we accept Bob Mooney's resignation from the planning board. He was the newly elected chair of the planning board, but he is stepping down. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve his resignation. Do I have a second?
Reluctantly, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Speaking of select board, planning board, it's getting late.
It's really
Um,
late. Ugh.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Sandy Biecker's resignation. She was alternate for the planning board. Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
And I don't know what the TH rank is.
The town hall ramp.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so tired and I've lost my audience, but
I know.
I'm gonna take my stand. Town hall ramp, it's dangerous at this point, there's a hole in it. We need to replace it.
Is there a
And
hole in it?
there is a hole in it, there's tape over it,
So there's
And
new,
it's
this is
spongy.
something that's new?
it's worsened,
Okay,
it's gotten much worse.
Plus the
Um,
angle's bad.
Yep, and Dee Dee pointed it out, Dee Dee said, hey, it's getting dangerous at this point, she noticed it. So I think we really need to take action on it, and while we are replacing the ramp, we really need to make it ADA compliant, that's long overdue. ADA was passed in 1990. It's been 33 years. We use the town hall for voting, we use it for town meeting, we use it for public events, we rent it out, all of those are public accommodations under the ADA umbrella. You have got to make sure you are making that available to people of all mobility levels. Every single election, I get a memo from the SOS, hey, make sure your voting place is ADA accessible, if you're not, you're in trouble. And I've heard some chatter that there's disagreement in the town whether or not the ADA applies to a historic building. It 100% does. All you have to do is Google it. Google, are historic buildings exempt from the ADA? And every single hit is absolutely not, no, 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 no. Historic buildings are not exempt, especially if we're using them in the way we're using our building, which we should be a living building that we bring into the future with us. So if we don't, we continue to ignore this, it exposes us to liability, but it's just really the right thing to do. Nobody knows when mobility issues are gonna hit them. Illness, age could happen to any of us at any point. We don't know who's moving here. We don't know who already lives here, who might need something like that, who is not coming to town meeting because they take a look at that ramp, they're like, no way. We have got to do something about it. We have several ways to do this that we've learned about recently. We can raise the land in front of the town hall with some fill. This was Les Fossil's proposal.
We've rejected that, it's not feasible.
Well, I'm just gonna list out things that I've heard.
Go ahead.
And I mean,
Okay.
Les Fossil's a historic building expert. He said it was feasible and if we must have a ramp, we can do a ramp off to the side to have a better slope. I don't think coming straight out is gonna be feasible because there's not space. It's gonna be too steep to be ADA compliant. Dee Dee sent me a nice picture. I think it's the Edgecombe Town Hall, has a historic building. They have a wooden ramp off to the side. Looks great. I Googled this. There's a company that makes aluminum ramps in different colors and designs. If you get a forest green aluminum ramp, would match the town hall, would look great. In my opinion, we should go out to both sides, not straight out. That's dangerous. You're pouring people into Main Road. And also, I just found out that we actually should have 2 handicap spaces. Like, if you have a
Parking
certain number
spaces.
of parking spaces, you have to have a certain number of handicap spaces. So I think the window is 25 to 50 spaces, you should have 2 spaces. I estimated at one point a while back that we have about 40 parking spaces there. We should have 2 handicap spaces. So we should have 2 ramps, we should have 2 handicap spaces. That's my opinion, but my bottom line is we have the money to do this now. We have $8,000 allocated last June to use by this June. So let's just do it. It's been tied up in the committee for too long. It's gotta happen.
I did a little bit of research, April, just looking, there's local businesses that do these exact kind of ramps.
Yeah.
So I would suggest contacting local companies, and get quotes and see what they can offer us.
I'm totally on board with that. So what I want to ask of you tonight is to set a deadline for this, because it's just kind of like churning around in the committee. I think they're having trouble agreeing. They don't have a timeline. I would like to ask the select board to set a timeline and just set this expectation that it be ADA compliant.
Let's not talk to them, let's just say give you the authority to go out and get some quotes.
Yeah.
So let's take this out of the
So are you
context of the
making a
committee.
motion?
Kind of getting there, I think.
Okay.
So I think what puts me over the edge is the idea that someone might be impacted, because the comment that you made about seeing someone
I've
having
seen-
difficulty
yeah.
getting up that ramp,
Without a wheelchair, I've seen people struggle.
that's what gets me, because I look at that and say,
Yeah.
okay, that's no problem,
Right.
but that's not, I'm not the one
Right.
trying to navigate it.
Right.
So that's what put me over the edge, and
Yeah.
also I did look at the edge come, and
Oh,
it's
I wanted to see
not
that,
pretty,
yeah.
but it's,
Yeah.
actually, I can show you.
I don't think any ramp is pretty.
Well,
I think it's beautiful because it shows that our community is open and welcoming and
Yes,
is making an
yeah,
effort to invite
yeah.
people in,
But
like, that's what I
as
see
far
when I
as
see a
does
ramp.
it aesthetically beautiful?
What
no,
good is a
but-
beautiful building if
If
it
it's not
can't be
used.
used and it's not
Yeah.
used to its
well,
greatest ability, so.
this is kind of shows you in use, so it's not the ramp by itself, but it's showing,
Oh, that's not bad at all.
you've got steps going up to a ramp going this way.
So the ramp goes
Yeah.
perpendicular.
So,
there.
and on that one, I watched the kids go running out in the street, because they can still do that.
They can still do that, yeah.
Yeah, so your objective there is not gonna work with that design, but,
So
and it
very
keeps on
gentle.
going over this way, so
But
the
it's a
next
very
picture over.
gentle slope.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
there it is.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Yep.
it's enough, now theirs is not as
I
high
was
as
gonna
ours.
say, yeah.
So it was an
so it's-
easier
It's
job.
an easier, and it's, yeah.
But if
But-
it's that long, it's,
We measured this, we being the town hall committee, a couple weeks ago when we rejected the earthen ramp is not feasible. And that was with Jim's assistance as well. I'm not sure why Fossil thought it would be, but,
he may have been just throwing out ideas too.
well, he was, and we were all excited about it.
Yep.
But we stopped to get back to say, okay, you can't have something there and have an air gap again, from the building. And what's the retaining wall?
Yeah,
How do you keep it up there? And again, how do you plow that? How do you do
Yeah,
it? You know,
yeah,
it's
no.
just,
so the question is, do we do aluminum or do we do
I would,
pressure treated?
I'd like, because I would rather we stay with something that's wood.
What, yeah,
So I'd like to propose that we do go out and get some quotes for a ramp. The design, I think the committee also liked the idea, if we had to do something to do the T.
okay.
Because it also made it less obtrusive. If we had to do an L, it would be a long arm going
Yeah.
out. And frankly, I think that no one have a problem with putting into handicapped spaces. That's something I think
That
we
makes
actually talked
sense.
about, yeah.
Makes sense.
So I'd like to propose that, but what we do is basically let's empower if April wants to be the driver to go out and get some quotes for some options and then to finalize a design that we can get back and approve.
I second it.
Okay.
Do we want to take a vote? All those in
All-
favor?
Aye,
All right, yeah.
okay.
Good job.
And last on the agenda, and Jeff, do you want to just postpone this for a couple of weeks, is a draft request for proposals for the assessor's agent?
Oh.
So, come on, you're trying to really get me going. It's not a good time.
No, I know, and I've got a cat that I gotta go find. But I wonder if you want to wait a couple of weeks.
No, no,
No,
no.
I don't think we need to with that one. The.
The draft.
For the assessors
Yep.
agent.
You've
That
seen
was,
it.
it was
So,
so,
so you want to just make a motion that,
Straightforward.
that we accept the proposal?
Yeah, like a motion that we put out the request for proposals and issue it.
Okay, so,
I think it's.
Go ahead and do
it's
that.
well-
And I
it's-
will
it's-
follow
it's
up from
well put
that
Together.
and just get the blessing finally from Kansas City, because I don't expect to be a problem. And again, get it so we can get it in the paper for this week. My concern is having it out there long enough to get some responses, then to select and have it so we can put it in the town meeting.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
that,
This, we've
that
got to
we
have
need
this in
to.
the town
we
meeting.
do, that, we
Yep,
definitely
yep.
do.
yes.
But the revaluation,
I know.
we've also got.
We do too, I know, but
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the, no longer will be a draft, request for proposals for, an assessor's agent, that we move forward with, getting that, finalized and advertised for. I know that was a mouthful. Do I have a second?
second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right, having no other legal business that I know of, and I'm not gonna ask, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.